So starting on the second issue, we have Tony Stark infiltrating the New Attilan, the home of the Inhumans. We see him looking for Ulysses while he gets a brief flashback to himself and James Rhodes prior to his death. Yeah, that was a little hard to see. I mean, we're just fresh coming off of the death of War Machine, and this was a little rough to stomach. So I will give Marvel credit where credit is due. They know how to hammer it in. He then finds Ulysses sleeping, and as we then ponder what he plans to do, we notice that Medusa has discovered Tony while she sits in the doorway. She then explains to Tony that Captain Marvel had pre-mentioned to her that he would be here and that despite his loss, he would never disrespect her kingdom. She urges him to return home and that they would talk once his head clears. Tony Stark proclaims that he is taking Ulysses, while Medusa states that he is a subject of the kingdom and if the roles were reversed, he would never allow this. She empathizes with him over his loss, but again, still stands firm that she will not allow him to take the boy, warning him one last time to go home, but not before breaching his mind and his suit with her psychic abilities, which eventually wake up Ulysses. Again, I don't know anything about Medusa or the Inhumans, so if I can't clearly call on something like that, I do apologize, but that's what it's presented in the comics, so that's where I'm going with. Stark then sends an electrical current through her hair tendrils back to Ulysses, which knocks her back, right as the other Inhumans had decided to enter the fray. We then see Tony stare down Karnak. Nope, I don't know anything about him either, and based off my overall impression of him in this comic, it's not a good one. He was expositing on how he has been thinking of Karnak and his ability to locate weaknesses in any structure and how much Tony Stark admires that. We then see him blast Karnak with his chest repulsor and then brags about how, unfortunately, his design is perfect, which I will give Marvel credit for. That was awesome. Another Inhuman, Crystal, shoots lightning at Stark, much to the dismay of her fellow Inhumans, probably because they all know that doing so is not a good thing. If you don't know what I'm referring to, watch the first Avengers movie. We find out really quick that giving Tony Stark lightning is not a very good idea because he knows how to turn it into a very dangerous weapon. The lightning then causes an explosion, and then we find out that the suit actually was just a decoy armor, and that, in fact, Tony had already taken Ulysses during this scuffle. We then get a couple of scenes with Beast and Medusa having a brief chat about what just happened. She then questions Henry McCoy's reasons for not wanting to fight Stark, and his only reason being that he doesn't fight Stark, which I felt was both a brash statement, but as well as very rushed. But also, again, if you've read the original series, you realize that a lot of these people have already gone down the road of fighting years ago, so they realize that when it comes to people like Stark and Captain America, Steve Rogers, it's really kind of pointless because they're so dead set on their ways. So we almost get kind of like a hint that no matter the severity of what happened before, a lot of Tony's stubbornness still remains. And if that's what they were planning on going with, then kudos to them. If I'm just reading into it too much, then I'm hoping that's the desired trend. I really do. And as we conclude our scene at the New Attilan, we see that it is the Human Torch is ready to give chase, but is then told to hang back as it is declared that Iron Man has declared war on the Inhumans. Our comic then takes us back to the Triskelion as we see Deputy Director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Maria Hill, and Captain Marvel planning a defense for Stark Tower, as they mention that the Inhumans are on their way there to bring his tower down, despite the fact they know that Tony is not there, but merely a way to stop Karnak from pulling the tower down on the city, which doesn't really make a lot of sense here, but I'm going to get to that later, so bear with me. We get a little funny banter between Karnak and the security system AI. Karnak refuses to heed the computer's warning and prepares to bring the building down until he is disrupted by Captain Marvel, the Ultimates, and the Avengers. Carol pleads with Medusa that she will take care of the Stark situation, and return Ulysses back to the Inhumans. Black Panther interjects that it is within her power to prevent this from escalating, and again, they will handle this. Medusa declares that Captain Marvel didn't prevent Stark from invading her country, but that they are there to stop them, and that they know that this was coming, but did nothing about it. Carol replies that she did give a heads up to Karnak, but had hoped that Stark would have calmed down. Again, we're going to get to some of this later, because some of these are not adding up. So, when we get to the review part, better explanation. The Inhumans are clearly not having it, as they feel they are being attacked for helping, and that they are owed their own revenge and being denied. We then get Carol begging the leader of the Inhumans to give her one more chance to fix this, and then the comic finally takes us to where Stark is keeping Ulysses. Ulysses appears to be coming to and addresses Stark, "Are you for real?" as we see him being stared down by Stark, and also being tied down to a chair. Which, I would say is a little excessive, but this is Iron Man we're talking about. Ulysses asks what he did, and Stark replies, "My best friend is dead." Ulysses apologizes upon hearing of the news, but Stark isn't having it, telling him that the mission he sent his friend on cost him his life. We see that Ulysses isn't quite sure what he means, which it makes it very clear that Ulysses had no say in the mission briefing process when it came to their encounter with Thanos. Which kind of makes Stark seem a little moronic, if he really thought that this kid had a say in a mission briefing process like this. But anyway, he's headstrong, we get it.
You're so stupid!
Tony begins to hook the kid up with monitors, as such as he looks for a way to explore his abilities. Ulysses admits that he knows very little about them, only that the visions come to him at complete random. Stark not really having it. We see him flicking the side of Ulysses' head and hoping to trigger some kind of activity in his mind. We do get a very small reading, but nothing significant. It isn't until he raises his fist to the kid that the computer notices a massive spike in brain activity. It is in that Stark and the kid try to get to the bottom of these visions. Ulysses very reluctant to answer, as he still is unsure of his own abilities himself. It is about this time that Stark's computer detects a breach in his security. He knows his friends and team members are looking for him. Tony releases him and tries to ask the kid to pretend that it is not a kidnapping. This right here was actually kind of funny, because up until this point it was fairly serious, except when you get up to Karnak arguing with an AI system, which was really made him look like a chump. But this was kind of funny. And it took it out of place, which was not a good thing, but I admire it for what it was. I mean, it's Tony Stark. And then we get the Ultimates and the rest of the Avengers that break into his hideout. We see Carol and Tony having some witty back and forth to try and ease the tension of the kidnapping, even going as far as Tony Stark saying, "Well, it's not like I tortured the kid," and then we see Ulysses interject very, very minutely that he did torture me, and he goes, "Alright, maybe a little bit." Stark then tries to make excuses for what he did, blaming it on the death of his friend and him needing to grieve. The two banter some more, arguing their own methods and principles, when they are suddenly interrupted by a vision from Ulysses that apparently everybody can see and even feel, quote unquote, too. We then cut to a 2-page spread of the Incredible Hulk standing over the bodies of the Avengers. We then cut to a panel where we see Ulysses completely in tears apologizing, saying that the Hulk is going to kill all of them. We conclude this comic by seeing Captain Marvel walking into the laboratory of Bruce Banner, Bruce peering up from his microscope asking what he can do for Carol Danvers. Thus leading into issue number 3.